A simple exploration of Wilhelm Dilthey. Today's topic, we're going to discuss the life and works of Dilthey, his distinction about human and natural science, his thoughts on hermeneutics, Dilthey's hermeneutic foundation, and Dilthey's hermeneutic method of operation. Before we delve into our main discussion, let me just have a brief introduction of Wilhelm Dilthey's life. So Wilhelm Dilthey was a German philosopher, historian, psychologist, sociologist, and hermeneutic philosopher. He was born on November 19, 1833 and died on October 1, 1911. He was influenced by philosophers such as Friedrich Schleiermacher. He made significant contribution to the methodology of the humanities and other human science, emphasizing the historical contingency and changeability of human life. So his major theoretical work, Introduction to Human Science, published in 1883, encompassed disciplines such as philology, literary and cultural studies, religion, psychology, political science, and economics. Dilthey's philosophy is often associated with the philosophy of life, and he argued that the diverse philosophy in the past were product and of relative to each period of history. He is especially remembered for his studies in the methodology of the social science or Geisteswissenschaften. And Dilthey's notable work. Dilthey's work is notably characterized by the development of hermeneutics, a method of interpretation that extends textual analysis and encompass understanding, human experience, and cultural expression. His selected works are comprised of 6 volumes. These 6 volumes covers the major writings of Dilthey. As you can see in the presentation, the first volume is the Introduction to the Human Science. It lays the foundation for his hermeneutic philosophy. He explores the distinct nature of human experience and emphasizes the importance of understanding historical and cultural context interpreting human phenomena. Dilthey's Volume 2 contribute to a theory of the human science by addressing the epistemological and psychological crises of Dilthey's time. The volume addresses the relationship of the self and the world, the reality of the external world, structural psychology, and the study of the individuality. In Dilthey's Volume 3, Formation of the Historical World in the Human Science, provide his most mature and best formulation of his critique of historical reason. So here in his volume 4, it is his most important works. This volume includes 3 works on hermeneutics and its history. This volume includes 3 works on hermeneutics and its history, such as Schleiermacher's hermeneutical system in relation to earlier Protestant hermeneutics, On Understanding and Hermeneutics, and The Rise of Hermeneutics. Additionally, it contains translations of review essays by Dilthey on historical figures and an important historical essay, The 18th Century and Historical World, where Dilthey re-examines the Enlightenment to show its significant contribution to the rise of historical consciousness. Additionally, it contains translation of review essays by Dilthey on historical figures and an important historical essay, The 18th Century and the Historical World, where Dilthey re-examines the Enlightenment to show its significant contribution to the rise of historical consciousness. Dilthey's Volume 5, Poetry and Experience, focuses on principal writings on aesthetics and the philosophical understanding of poetry, as well as representative essays of literary criticism. The essay, The Imagination of the Poet, is his most sustained attempt to examine the philosophical bearings of literature in relation to psychological and historical theory. Other key works included in this volume are The Three Epochs of Modern Aesthetic and Its Present Task, Fragments for a Poetics, and two final essays discussing Goethe and Hölderlin. These writings showcase Dilthey's project of historicizing aesthetics and poetics, and making the methodology more inductive. Additionally, Dilthey explored the issue of communication in poetry, examining the link between the experience of the poet and that of the reader. His last volume, entitled Ethical and Worldview Philosophy, includes his principal works on psychology, aesthetics, ethics, and pedagogy, as well as some historical essays on literary criticism. The works in this volume present Dilthey's most deeply held views about philosophy and how it can guide human practices. It includes System of Ethics, which argues that human sympathy motivates us only externally and most replaced with the internally motivated feeling of solidarity that respect others as ends in themselves. The Essence of Philosophy demonstrates how philosophy has developed from its traditional metaphysical rule to the epistemological and encyclopedic function that ground and order the natural and human science. The work also discloses an orientational function of philosophy that is explored further in the types of worldview and their development. Philosophical worldviews are important in that they address the existential needs and riddles that grow out of life experience and are not solved by any of the science. Additionally, the book features three other significant essays: Present-Day Culture and Philosophy, The Dream, and The Problem of Religion. His selected works have been influential in shaping the fields of hermeneutics, the philosophy of history, and the methodology of the humanities and human sciences, leaving a lasting impact on subsequent philosophical and historical thought. So let's move to Dilthey's distinction between human and natural science. Dilthey proposed a separate model for the human science, which he called Geisteswissenschaften. He argued that the natural science and the human science have different goals and methods. In the natural science, we seek to explain phenomena in terms of cause and effect, or the general and the particular. In contrast, in the human science, we seek to understand in terms of the relation of the part and the whole. Dilthey believed that the human mind or spirit is the central phenomenon from which all others are derived and analyzable. To further understand, to better understand it, in human science, it is concerned with understanding the meanings and values inherent in human actions, expressions, and creations. It relies on interpretative understanding rather than causal explanation. It involves grasping the subjective meaning that the individuals attach to their experiences. For example, the interpretation of a literary work, historical event, or cultural artifact. Dilthey believed that understanding human phenomena requires empathy and a recognition of the unique context in which they occur. On the other hand, natural science or Naturwissenschaften deals with explaining natural phenomena through causal relationship and laws. It implies observation, experimentation, and the formulation of general laws to explain and predict natural events. For example, Newton's laws of motion in physics or Darwin's theory of evolution in biology. These sciences seek objective universal principles that can be applied across different contexts. His distinction reflects his belief that human and natural science operate in distinct realms due to the unique nature of human experience. Human science involves the understanding of meanings and values, which are context dependent and subjective, making them different from the objective, law like regularities studied in natural science. So Dilthey's goal was to ground human science in the same way that Kant had grounded the natural science. He hoped that human science would be able to arrive at lawful explanation just like the natural science. However, he rejected using a model formed exclusively from the natural science and proposed developing a separate model for the human science. Dilthey defended his use of the term Geisteswissenschaften by pointing out that other terms such as social science, cultural science are equally one-sided and that the human mind or spirit is central phenomenon from which all others are derived and analyzable. In summary, Dilthey defined the human science broadly to include both the humanities and social sciences, emphasizing the importance of understanding human expressions and experiences in the human sciences, and rejecting the idea of a foundational discipline or method. His ideas have had a lasting impact on the philosophy of history, the human sciences, and the understanding of human expressions and experiences.
Dilthey touched on hermeneutics. He builds the foundation of hermeneutics with the term of Geisteswissenschaft to provide an interpretation of the human inner life expressions such as gesture expression, historical behavior, legal codification, work of art, and literature. The development of hermeneutics and obtaining valid objectivity from the human inner life is necessary from the reductionist and mechanistic transition of natural science to find a good approach to a phenomenon. Dilthey's hermeneutics approach to studying history emphasizes the importance of understanding the cultural context of historical events.
Dilthey's hermeneutic formulation. Dilthey's idea attempted to re-establish the humanities' stature, which the comprehension of the previous philosopher had collapsed. According to philosophers, everything that cannot be demonstrated by scientific experiment is not one. In order to prevent significant disparities between the object of study and the interpretation, these led him to broaden the concept of hermeneutics. To accomplish this, Dilthey develops hermeneutics and epistemology, specifically the connection between experience, expression, and thought. First, there is the experience or illibnis, which is thought of as a real-life event. He believes that interpretation through hermeneutics is an experiential process still alive in a person's soul, which can represent direct contact with the author's life even though the experience has been long. As a result, he places emphasis on experience's implicit meaning of temporality, which is something that is inherent to the experience rather than something is imposed by consciousness. In order to comprehend text, hermeneutics requires a link between the author, the researcher, and the source material through internalized experiences and understandings regarding ideals, the perspective of the artist, and the historical events of the period. The two expressions or astrodat that he interprets are manifestations of life, not sentiments that elude the concepts, rules, linguistic structures, and everything else that is a reflection of human life. Dilthey stated as much: when we read history, we rearrange the author's framework such that the events can be observed once more in the light of actual occurrences. Through expressions of life that can only be understood internally and not through the five senses, this process might result in institutions that are conceptualized by transmitted by themselves, revealing the meaning and purpose of the author's work. The three thoughts he interprets are not rational but indicate operational activities, the process of empty thinking that results in a pre-reflective translation from one person to another is called understanding, or finds nourishment in other people's lives. Understanding in the humanities refers to an endeavor to comprehend the range of human endeavors that seek to ascertain the motivations, objectives, aspirations, and intents underlying an individual's work.
Dilthey's hermeneutic method of operation. Dilthey's hermeneutics methods of operation is a historical approach to interpretation that is used to understand human history and the process of knowing the interstate described through signs of others so that it is manifested. Dilthey's hermeneutics is based on the idea that the meaning of a text will never stop at one time, but constantly changes according to historical modifications.
To sum up our report, Wilhelm Dilthey was a German philosopher and historian who lived from 1833 to 1911. He is best known for his distinction between the natural and human sciences, and his efforts to establish the humanities and social sciences as interpretive sciences in their own right. Dilthey's early work aimed to ground the human sciences in the same critical project that Kant had used to ground the natural sciences. However, he later rejected the idea that inner explanations of human creativity could be arrived at. Dilthey's major works include Introduction to Human Sciences in 1883, Ideas Concerning a Descriptive and Analytical Psychology in 1894, The Structure of the Historical World in Human Sciences in 1910. He emphasized that the essence of human beings cannot be grasped by introspection but only from a knowledge of all history. Dilthey's work has been influential in the study of literature and cultural history. He made significant contributions to hermeneutics as a scientific methodology. His hermeneutics methodology involves interpreting text by understanding the author's history, which manifests into a text, language, and discourse. Dilthey's hermeneutics is historical, and he emphasized the meaning of a text constantly changes according to historical modifications. He proposed three processes for understanding the author's history: understanding the author's point of view and insight, understanding the author's activity directly with historical events, and assessing events based on ideas when the author lived. Dilthey's work influenced subsequent thinkers and his contribution to hermeneutics. The human sciences, aesthetics, and interpretive psychology are widely recognized.
Hi everyone, my name is Ruchin P. Lucas. I will be presenting to you the recommendations of Dilthey's work. First recommendation is the results of this study indicate that Dilthey thought of hermeneutics as three formulations in which the text interpretation is experience, expression, and understanding. Second is it is really important to study Dilthey's ideas because of its impact on the development of the human natural sciences and his hermeneutic approach to studying history that is continues to be influential today. Third, Dilthey reminds us that culture is about people that take part in the project of constructing a society that ought to be less unequal, less unjust, less segregating, and less passive with regard to differing starting environments. Last recommendation is today, researchers in the human sciences delve into social objects, be they material or immaterial, but always set by a person, which makes a repositioning with regard to technological development more and more urgent. So persons are not there only to make sure machines work. They should engage the moral questions a human being while on the via humanitatis. So this via humanitatis means a primary path of the spirit and teacher of life. It is a crucial pathway for understanding the human being in his entirety. So that's all for the recommendations.